Okay, here we are, Julie.
We are here.
Perry Home Solutions, coming at you
Yes.
with our. What are we doing today?
Our knowledge.
Yep. You're the one telling us what kind of knowledge we're bringing, so let us know.
So the first thing we're going to talk about is how do we. There's multiple concerns or I don't want to call it problems, but I guess I can think of a better word. That you as a seller you have to deal with when you're selling your house, and I want to talk about one specific issue, which would be time on the market,
Right.
and how we can help solve that for our clients.
Got it. Okay. So we're actually really excited because we've rolled out in the last couple of months a new selling system called 72 Sold, which is actually a nationally recognized system, and it's one of the maybe the top rated home selling system in the United States. So I wanted to talk a little bit about that. And one of the first things that this system was designed around is solving a couple of significant problems that exist when you're selling a house, right?
Correct.
So what is one major problem when you're selling a house?
Time.
Right, time, the time it takes to sell a house. And right, what I have in front of me here is the chart, because what we've done is we've done an analysis of all the home sales in, I believe it was 2022, last year. And so we analyzed, based on how long the house is sitting on the market, what do you actually net from the house?
Right.
Right.
Basically, the cost of time on the market.
Right. Okay. So the first 7 days, on average, people get really close to 100% of what they're asking for, or at least what the maximum sales price they can get. In the 8 to 14 day period, that goes down to 97%. Then in the 15 to 21 day period, that goes to down to 94.9%. Then down to 93.5%. And then all the way to 44 days, it goes all the way down to 91.6%. So one of the major things that we are intentional about solving, and that our system does solve, is the house sitting on the market. It's called 72 Sold because the goal is to sell the property in the first 72 hours that it's on the market. So we're going to be talking a lot more about what that is and what that entails. But we did want to talk about one of the major things that people don't really think about, and that is when you throw a house on the market and it sits there and stagnates, that's costing you money. And we're solving that problem for our clients, right?
Correct. Because sometimes people think, oh, it's okay to wait for the perfect buyer to show up, and that's fine. But it's not always the case. Sometimes you are leaving money on the table if you're waiting.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yep. Oftentimes you get your best offers will be in the first week or two on the market maximum. And very likely the first couple of offers you get will be the best. So, okay, that's that. 72 Sold. So what else? What else do we have to talk about, B?
We're also want to talk about today to continue our mortgage hack series.
Oh yeah, that's right.
So this is geared towards buyers. As we know, the interest rate environment is challenging, and so some things to consider is getting creative on how you can still make the your goal of owning a home possible while navigating interest rates going up.
Right, exactly.
So mortgage hack of today is
You're the one that has it.
buy down. So I forgot to
Buy
print the
downs.
paper.
Okay, so
Buy
here's what a buy down is. Okay, a buy down is good for buyers and sellers. So what a buy down is where the seller will pay what we call a point or a percent of the mortgage towards buying down the interest rate. Right, is essentially what that is.
Yeah.
Now, that's obvious how that helps a buyer. That could save a buyer a tremendous amount of money in the payments they make on that loan. We have an example of a $500,000 mortgage at 7% interest rate where they bought it down 1 point, which is 0.25%, but that doesn't matter as much. They saved almost $30,000 in interest. So that's massive, right? How that helps the seller is because one of the challenging parts of selling a house right now is that interest rates are high. And so when interest rates are high, one way to mitigate that is to offer an interest rate that other people can't compete with. And so a buy down kind of allows that to happen.
Right.
And then there's a couple of interesting little tricks to buy down. So there's the basic buy down, which is kind of what I just described. And then there's another one called the 3-2-1 buy down. And basically what this is it's instead of paying a fee to buy down the rate for the life of the loan, you pay a fee up front that buys down the rate more significantly for the first couple of years of the loan. So you'll pay for 3 points in the first year, 2 points in the second year, and 1 point in the third year. And this, what that does is that saves the buyer a ton of money in their actual mortgage payment right off the bat for the first couple of years. So that also is a really interesting incentive that we don't really see anybody else offering in the marketplace that can really entice buyers to make an offer on your house and make your house a lot more appealing in the marketplace, right?
So that would be particularly appealing, for example, for a buyer that might not be staying in the home for a while, or maybe if you think maybe interests are gonna come back down and you could refinance and
well, it's that's definitely a benefit, right? If you think listen, it's a benefit to any buyer. I mean, if you save money in the first couple of years of the home, that's one of the hardest times to move into the home. That's when you're putting all that money out front with your down payment, your closing costs. It's when you're usually, what is it?
Some repairs.
Repairs,
Or,
upgrades to the house. All this money's flowing out of your pocket, and then you have to start making your brand new mortgage payment, and that's definitely a tough financial time for some people. And so to have the incentive of having a reduced payment on your house for the first couple of years, I don't see anybody else offering that in the marketplace. So it's a very, any real estate agents watching this, it's something interesting to offer. And if you're looking at any of our listings, I think you're going to find some advantages there. So, it benefits anybody. It benefits anybody, any buyers out there. So that's it. And again, of course, it's a very complex thing. We can't explain it all right here in just a couple of minutes on this video. But if you have any questions, give us a call or whatever, and we're happy to walk you through it.
Yep.
So. What else we got, Bea? What else we
Very
talking
good.
about?
And another topic that we're going to talk about, some people sometimes ask, first of all, I guess let's discuss, there's two different kinds of contract. What we call it the regular contract, for sale, purchase contract.
Full fat.
And then we have what's called the as-is contract, which
Right.
means you're selling the property as is, right?
Yeah.
So let's just focus on the as-is contract for
Okay.
now, for simplicity. And so a lot of people say, well, I want to sell my house the way it is. I'm not planning on fixing anything. I'm not making any repairs. I'm just selling it as is. And so, Brian, sell my house as is.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
And then what happens is inevitably the buyer does their inspection. They find something that they want addressed. And so how do you handle inspection request at an as-is contract?
So there's actually a couple of ways to handle that. First, let me real quickly describe what an as-is contract is. So a regular contract has elements in it that require the seller to do repairs on the property. It requires them.
Certain repairs and
Certain specified repairs.
Right.
Maybe we'll do another thing on a regular contract sometime, because I actually kind of like them, by the way. Believe it or not, those can be really good for sellers. There's a lot of misconceptions around that. But pretty much everybody loves as is. So, that's what most people use. As is means that the buyer can do their inspection, and you as the seller are not obligated to make repairs based on that inspection. And but the buyer also can cancel within the inspection period. So there's a different kind of vibe going on there, right?
For any reason, repairs or otherwise.
Right.
Basically gives the buyer the upper hand at the beginning of the contract.
And then your question was, how do we deal with negotiating that?
Right. Like even though you're selling your contract, yes, your house as is, and then the buyer comes to you, I'm the seller, and is asking me to fix X, Y, and Z. Then
Well, there's a couple of ways of looking at it. Now, number one, the most important thing to know is when we represent our clients, we structure the contract in a way that does not require them to make these repairs. So you do have the right to say, I'm not interested. However, that many times is not the right perspective, because if there's an issue with the house that any other reasonable buyer would have, then it makes sense to address it, because you may kill this deal and go into another deal that might not even be as desirable, right? And then still have to address that issue. And so the first question is it something that is
reasonable,
right? If they don't like the color of a wall, that might not be so reasonable. But if there's, some kind of severe mechanical issue with the air conditioner, if the roof's leaking, I guess we use the same things every time. All right, so we'll finish our sentences here, I guess.
Yes.
Then those might be appropriate things. In our 72 sold selling system, we actually have a segment of that addresses repairs specifically, and it's called the BCW formula: broken, cosmetic, and worn. I guess we're going to share another 72 sold little gem here today. So broken, cosmetic, worn means is what that ultimately translates into in the negotiating of the inspection repairs is we usually will say to a buyer up front, we'll just have sort of an agreement with them, and we'll say, if something's broken and it's legitimately just not functioning correctly, we will replace it. If it's cosmetic, then we're not going to replace it. And if it's worn, in other words, it still functions, but it's getting towards the end of its useful life, then what we'll do is we'll calculate how long we think it should last for, and we would be willing to give a credit for a prorated portion of that, right? You know, if the AC has 10 years of life, and we're 5 years into it, and so there's 5 years of life left potentially, we're not going to credit you for a brand new AC, but maybe we'll give you enough to cover, you know, maybe the life that's left on the AC, something like that, okay?
Okay.
So that's kind of how we address it. Now, ultimately, every situation is very unique. Every repair is kind of unique. You know, hey, sometimes you get these little miracle offers, these contracts. I mean, we're pretty good at what we do. It's not uncommon that we'll generate an offer that's really spectacular, that kind of blows us away. And sometimes that buyer will ask for a little bit more than what normally we'd find reasonable. But sometimes their offer was so great that giving them an extra $500 in repairs is more than worth it to make that buyer happy.
Right. If all the other terms of the contract are very appealing, maybe you're a little more lenient on the repair.
If the buyer's paying $10,000 over our asking price and they want an extra $500 in repairs, sometimes the wise financial decision is give them the $500, do the repair or whatever, just to make them happy, you know. So.
Right. So to sum it up, it's not a requirement of the seller, and yet depending on the circumstances, it might make sense to keep it together and come to some kind of win-win agreement with the buyer.
Yes, and we got our clients through that. We don't just leave you in the wind. It depends on the circumstances. You know, if the offer was kind of shaky to begin with, and there's elements to it that we weren't 100% in love with, we might approach it from an entirely different perspective. So it depends on the circumstances. You know, it really does. It depends on the repairs. Right. If we're talking a total of just a little tiny, you know, a couple $100 in repairs, you know, maybe you just do them, you know, just not even have to deal with it. But I mean, sometimes you get a buyer who's super unreasonable, and you have a really nice house, and they're asking you for $15,000 in repairs, and sometimes the right answer is tell them to fly a kite, and we'll just sell it to somebody else. That does happen sometimes, unfortunately, you know.
Very good. I think that wraps up our session today.
Okay. Well, have a lovely day, everybody. Thank you for joining us here at Perry Home Solutions.
Bye.